government spending bill that Congress just passed offers absolutely no funding for coronavirus-related efforts. And when I say absolutely no funding, I mean funding for everything, including testing, coronavirus treatments, those monoclonal antibodies that you right-wingers love so much, no funding for that.
Oh, they're gonna freak out.
No funding for that appropriated in this government spending bill. Also, no funding for vaccines or boosters. So my point here is, if there's another surge, there's another wave, if people need to get boosted, it is very likely in the coming months, you're gonna have to find a way to pay for it. And if you have to pay for it, are you likely to get vaccinated or boosted? So let me give you the details. The White House has put out a statement about this. Congress has responded by claiming that they're going to push for a standalone bill. We'll see about that. But here's the statement from the White House. Congress has not provided us with the funding we need to continue the COVID-19 response and minimize the pandemic's impact to the nation and our economy. With cases rising abroad, scientific and medical experts have been clear that in the next couple of months, there could be increasing cases of COVID-19 here in the United States as well. As the administration has warned, failure to fund these efforts will now have severe consequences, as we will not be equipped to deal with a future surge. Waiting to provide funding once we're in a surge will be too late. And then they get into some specifics, and this is where it's super relevant. So without funding, the United States will not have enough additional boosters or variant-specific vaccines if needed for all Americans. The federal government is unable to purchase additional life-saving monoclonal antibody treatments and will run out of supply to send to states as soon as late May. That's coming real quick. The federal government cannot purchase sufficient quantities of treatments for immunocompromised individuals, and the federal government will not be able to sustain the testing capacity we built over the last 14 months as we head into the second half of the year. I also want to note that while the US government has been incredibly pathetic in helping low-income countries get vaccinated, this would be the complete nail in the coffin for that effort, okay? Because what the federal government has done, it's not enough, but what it had done, they bought doses of the coronavirus vaccine and shipped it over to low-income countries. They won't be able to do that if there's no funding for it. And remember, this is a global pandemic. It's not just about the United States. You want to get past it once and for all. The only way to really do that is to ensure that we have the global population vaccinated.
So let's break down some of the issues with this. One, and I get that they're trying to say, this ain't about us, this is about Congress. We wanted the funding, they don't want to give us the funding. Okay, that is in some ways true. You share a party and you're supposed to be the head of that party, Joe Biden. You're supposed to be in charge. You were chosen by the people in no small part to manage the pandemic differently than we had been experiencing through the beginning of 2020. I want you to ask yourself a difficult question. If it was still Trump right now, what would they be doing differently than nothing? Actively funding colloidal silver? Maybe. Other than that, we don't have a mandate. Mask mandates are going away. We're not going to be providing free vaccines. We're done with the life-saving treatments, which again, you're totally right to point out, the Republicans pretend to be big fans of. Are they pushing for that funding? And also, by the way, if the fear is that cases are going to rise, in no small part because cases are already rising in other countries, which by the way, we're not going to be helping anymore because we're not going to be providing those international doses of the vaccine, as you rightly point out, then we at the very least need to be doing as much as possible to test for it so that we can very quickly shift back into taking this seriously, since basically everyone has agreed that we shouldn't right now, but we're not even gonna have that testing either. And in terms of a solo bill to fund this, I will believe that when I see it, and I don't expect that to be anytime soon. You can add that to the ever-expanding list of solitary bills that they're gonna do to solve all sorts of problems that they weren't able to do the first time around. Has any of that come true yet? I mean, we haven't even gotten back down to the daily case count before the last surge, let alone the lowest level of cases since the pandemic began, which I would consider to be sort of a bare minimum at this point. If we're gonna throw our hands up and just pray or roll the dice on what happens. We're not even back down to there. We've decided socially and in terms of the government response that we are done with this. Things will go back to normal even if we have to stick our fingers in our ears and shove our head in the sand to pretend that it's so.
I mean, look, remember, in cases of emergencies like this global pandemic, the executive branch can act unilaterally. This is according to fantastic analysis done by the American Prospect. It's a project that they did to show, the type of executive power Biden really has. And one of the things that he can do, again, unilaterally, is expand Medicare to cover every uninsured American in the country. He could do that on his own. He doesn't have to cite Joe Manchin as an obstacle. We don't have to worry about Kyrsten Sinema. We don't have to worry about the Republican Party at all. But he's not willing to do it. Because let's be completely honest here. Congress or Democrats in Congress say, don't worry, there's gonna be a standalone bill. But why would anyone think that a standalone bill would pass? If Republicans don't want funding for coronavirus treatments, vaccination, everything that I listed earlier, what makes you think that taking that out of a bill that includes all sorts of things they do want is somehow gonna persuade them to vote for the standalone that just has the one issue that they don't want? Like, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. They know it's stupid. They think we're stupid.
Yeah, why would we believe that they'd even have 50 votes in the Senate for this? Necessary, I would hope. But why are we just going to assume? No, this is covering their ass. That's what the White House is doing. They know that this is a massive dereliction of duty. They're just trying to do some preemptive damage control. Maybe, in hindsight, when the cases are skyrocketing again, they can point to Congress and say it's their fault. I got news for you, but if a spoiler alert, that is not gonna save the perception of the Biden administration. As people are once again losing friends and loved ones, if they have to go back into lockdown, if things shut down, they're not gonna say, well, old Joe tried as hard as he could, which isn't even true, as you point out. By the way, we have this massive overinflated defense budget, close to $800 billion. If ever there was a time when we needed to defend people, literally from something that's arguably coming from outside of the country. Like, if you want to treat it as some sort of bioweapon or something, if that's the only way that you can actually take some of the money that's going into more tanks that we're never going to use in our defense, put it into testing and vaccination and monoclonal antibodies and whatever that pill from Pfizer was supposed to be. Remember that from like 6 months ago? What the hell happened to that? I understand that's not on the Biden administration, but put some funding into all of that. That will actually defend American lives.
Yeah, and one of the other considerations is as new variants come, as we experience new variants, it's very likely that the vaccine needs to be updated. And oftentimes these pharmaceutical companies just sit around and wait for the federal government to provide the research and development money for them to do it. They're not gonna have the research and development money for it. And look, to your point about military spending, look, I've been pretty clear in saying that I'm totally okay with offering aid, offering help to Ukrainians. I hate seeing civilians die. The humanitarian aid is important. We're also providing military aid. In this specific spending bill, a lot of money was appropriated for that effort, $13.6 billion in humanitarian and security aid to Ukraine. We have the money.
We have the money.
We have the money. We can maybe throw a bone to the American people and just try to keep them healthy and safe.
Yeah.